Hello, everyone out there on the internet. My name is Springtrap, and welcome back to Fast Bear Reactions. So we got some new news regarding FNAF VR Help Wanted. And this news did come out a couple of days ago, so I'm a little bit late on it. So sorry guys, but Easter has been approaching, and us animatronics have been kinda busy with it. Especially the Easter Bunny. Alright, so there's a couple things I want to talk about today. The first thing is a Steam post that Scott came out with regarding the release date of FNAF VR. And the second thing is an article online that some of you guys on Twitter were showing us that gives out some more information about FNAF Help Wanted. And I'm gonna read both of them today for you guys. Alright, so let's start off with the Steam post that talks about the release date. Okay, so the Steam post is called VR Release Date Announcement. And Scott says, "Hi everyone, I wanted to make a long overdue announcement about the release date of Five Nights at Freddy's VR Help Wanted. The game was originally scheduled for release at the end of April, but I've decided to push the release date back to late May. The truth is that the game has become much bigger than it was initially conceived to be. That's a very good thing, but because of that, I want to spend a little extra time with Steel Wool doing more testing and adding more polish before release, and maybe even throw in a few extra surprises. So, I hope all of you will be patient and bear with us. We all want it to be as good as it can be. The game will release on May 21st, smiley face. Alright then, May 21st. That's not too long away. It's about a month and 2 days from when I'm recording this video. Alright, are you guys excited for FNAF VR Help Wanted? Because I sure am, especially because I and my minions, the Phantom Animatronics, are gonna be in this game. Alright guys, so now I'm gonna read this online article that you guys wanted me to read that gives out some more info on the upcoming FNAF VR game. So, this article is called Five Nights at Freddy's VR Help Wanted Features More Detailed Frights. Alright, let's read it. Alright, so it says, it's most frightening the first time. That isn't to say that one ever adjusts to the scares while playing through the 40 mini-games of Five Nights at Freddy's VR Help Wanted with the PlayStation 4's virtual reality headset. But that first moment when one of the creepy people-sized animatronics lurches into your face screaming as you sit back in the virtual dark of an office or a repair shop or inside of the ductwork of a restaurant is jump out of your seat, sorta shout, definitely rip off your headphones scary. I tried to play it cool when it happened to me, finding my seat again, PlayStation VR headset tilted back from my face, headphones sort of dangling from my neck as I spoke too fast while chatting with one of the developers, pretended that I hadn't just shouted really loudly in the quiet of a demo station at a PlayStation event earlier this week. I don't think I pulled it off. Rodney Brett, character artist at developer Steel Wool Studios, said that the team actually had to take a second pass on the characters of the game to make them scary in VR. The game's original vertical slice, he said, wasn't quite fun enough and certainly wasn't scary enough in VR. So we went back and took another pass on it, and we added all of these animations and made things a little more creepy, he said. The concept of a virtual reality take on the creepy Five Nights at Freddy's franchise actually came from the franchise creator. Scott Cawthon came to Steel Wool because he liked some of the other VR games they had created. The original pitch was that Scott wanted us to make the original Five Nights game, Brett said. So Steel Wool dutifully went to work, faithfully recreating the game in virtual reality, but soon realized the end result was both a bit too light in content and didn't exactly translate well as a port, so they went back and amped things up a bit. One of the main things the team struggled with internally was whether to keep the game's minimal animations or redesign them for VR. That was part of the charm, Britt said. So we struggled with whether we should keep that or whether we should create better animations for them. One of the reasons why I went with the latter was because in VR, they came across as more silly than horrific. That's because, Britt said, changing the game from something occurring in a flat 2D plane to a virtual world really exposes some of the things you might not typically notice as a player. He likened it to movies that used higher frame rates like The Hobbit. That revealed a lot of things, he said. Once you increase the fidelity of the medium you're looking at, all of a sudden, the user or the player notices flaws. So we noticed that if we left the animations as they were, that it didn't look good, and more importantly, it wasn't scary. So the team went back in and worked to increase the detail of the characters and their animations without losing the original feel. That included making sure they moved like machines and added details like hydraulics to their design. When Cawthon saw the game in action, he loved it. He started wondering how the other games would look in VR, Britt said, and then what was originally a port of the first game just started growing. Soon, all of the Five Nights games were in the VR experience, and then they started adding in a few new experiences. Our internal development team came up with some ideas, and then we ran it by Scott, Britt said. We eventually developed this fully featured 40+ minigame version that I would describe as a best of Five Nights. The demo shown off at PAX East this week featured 3 of those minigames. The first is the classic Five Nights at Freddy's experience, where you play as a guard sitting in a room with cameras, trying to keep an eye on the roving animatronics so they don't murder you. The game features new animations because the development team realized that the original motion, which essentially had the characters sliding down hallways, looked more funny than frightening in VR. They also built out the detail of the models to enhance how frightening they are. The goal of the game is to survive the night, locking one or both of the doors to your office at the right moment, to both prevent your death, but also to preserve the slowly depleting energy. The second experience has you following simple instructions while you repair one of the giant creatures up in personal. The final experience on hand has players sitting in ductwork, following slightly complicated instructions to keep the AC functioning correctly while making sure they're not murdered. The gameplay is very simple, relying on the Move controllers to push virtual buttons, turn knobs, pull levers, and do minor repairs. The real payoff is the game's ability to steadily crank up the tension and try to distract you until it's too late. After playing through the included minigames and surviving, players can go through them again in a sort of nightmare mode, which cranks up the difficulty and distraction in every game. Beat that, and players are treated to an end game, which Britt says adds to the lore of the Five Nights at Freddy's world. It's all new content to kind of fill in the backstory, he said. That's a big payoff for fans of the series who have long had to extract the game's story through snippets. What little is known about the game and its setting is that there's a pizzeria with a dark history of dead security guards and missing children. Brett said the team hopes to work with Cawthon again, this time on something entirely new for Five Nights. He wants to make another Five Nights, hopefully with us in the future, Brett said. I'm not sure if he wants to do another VR game though. This game, which will likely be released in April or May for somewhere in the $20 to $30 range, is coming to PlayStation VR, Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, and if the studio has its way, perhaps the Oculus Quest. We think that would be a perfect platform for it, Brett said of the Quest. Wow, so from that interview, and also Scott's Steam post, we got a lot of information right there. Firstly, now we know that the game is going to be released on May 21st. That's awesome. And also, we know how much the game is going to be when it releases. It's going to be in the $20 to $30 range. That's pretty cool. And also, a lot of people worried about the fact that the game might only be on PlayStation with the PlayStation VR, but this interview disproves that. Not only is it going to be on PlayStation VR, but it's also going to be an Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, and maybe the Oculus Quest as well, which is pretty good, which means that the game should be on Steam. Also, this game is going to have all of the previous Five Nights at Freddy's games, but in VR. That's incredible! But does that include Ultimate Custom Night? If it does, that would blow my Springtrap mind, that's for sure. Also, there's going to be 40 minigames in this game. That's incredible. And not only that, there's going to be a nightmare mode once you beat the game, and all the minigames are going to be harder. And if you beat them then we get a cutscene that reveals some of the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's. Well guys, we got a huge insight into the VR game with this interview and this Steam post. I'm not going to lie guys, I'm quite hyped for this game. What about you all out there? Are you hyped as well? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know what you think about all of this. Alright guys, so please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Please subscribe to see more Fazbear reactions, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye everybody.